following takes place between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Events occur in real time.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Black Friday. All those folks out there that are out there shopping. I mean, I don't even know if that's really a thing anymore. I know everything's mostly done online, and we are long removed from the days, John, of, and I know you spent some time at the Herald and some newspapers, so I'm sure your paper covered these stories, the trampling and the trouncing of people at department stores in the mid-90s to get Tickle Me Elmos and all the other toys of the season. That seemed to be like a yearly occurrence when I was a kid. Now, obviously, things are done online, and thank God, because I think people are even more reckless now. So, thankfully, most people are doing stuff online these days.
Well, we've already seen gone viral, the video of the two moms punching each other in the Walmart in Arkansas over the last TV on the shelf. So, that's going to happen all the time. Always strange things happen in Walmart for some reason, and generally in Arkansas or Missouri or West Virginia or someplace like that. So, yeah, those days, I think they've changed quite a bit. People do buy things online. This used to be the perfect day where the women would go shopping and the guys would stay home and watch football all day because there's just a great group of college football games. I'm waiting for the time the NFL puts the game on this Friday at some point, with, the day after Thanksgiving. They have the triple header now on Thanksgiving. Maybe they'll start putting one game on a Friday after Thanksgiving, at like 4:30 in the afternoon. Who knows? I mean, I'm sure they're trying to monetize it at some point, but I wouldn't be shocked if that happened.
I don't know if I'd like that, to be honest. And I'm not entirely sure if they do that, because I think there's kind of this, look, the NFL wants to, essentially dominate as many days as possible, but I'm pretty sure that they're going to, at all costs, aside from like playoffs and stuff like that, avoid the Friday and Saturday, because Friday, is historically a Friday night lights, the high school stage takes center stage, and then Saturday's college. And, I think as much as the NFL would love to monopolize every single day of the week, I think they also see that, hurting their basically talent pool, and hurting their programs is counterproductive. So I think those Friday and Saturday days, obviously the NFL occasionally plays games on Saturday, generally at the end of December if it's around Christmas or for playoffs, which is fine, because at that point college is over with, college football, at least prior to the bowl game. So yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. It wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't like it. I mean, I already don't necessarily like Thursday night football outside of Thanksgiving. Yesterday notwithstanding, because, well, look, I don't want to sit here and be a Debbie Downer. I certainly enjoyed yesterday. I mean, I'm always going to enjoy being able to sit down and watch football. And that game between Vegas and Dallas was so outrageously reckless that I enjoyed it. But the problem was, what was it, 26 penalty flags?
28 flags by Sean Hockey.
That's
obviously
absurd.
we don't need DNA evidence to realize that Sean Hockey is Ed Hockey's son.
Yeah.
Like, he loves the microphone and throws so many flags. It's the crew that throws the most flags, especially DPIs, and that's all we saw yesterday. Yeah, it was kind of frustrating to watch, and a lot of that goes back to the two teams. I don't think Dallas is all that well coached. I don't think the Raiders are all that well coached. They each had 14 penalties, and it was kind of this entertaining game, but because it was so poorly played, it was entertaining, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that actually does make a lot of sense, because I was trying to figure out, because I'm not going to sit there and tell you that a 36-33 overtime game was not entertaining. It was certainly It was certainly entertaining. It got off to a little bit of a slow start, and I think, personally, as a fan, there was no stake in it for myself, either the first game or the second game, other than just watching football. So, you do lose a little bit of that, but I mean, 36-33 in overtime. It got really back and forth there at the end. And again, it was definitely hurt a lot by flags, because it definitely kills the momentum. And, I obviously got hurt a few few times fantasy football wise, but we're not going to bring that up because that's just a painful stab in the gut every time I talk about fantasy football. But no, I mean, look, I mean, I said it yesterday or Wednesday. I wrote about it for a short little piece that I put out Wednesday night. I'm tired of Detroit. like,
Oh man,
like, can we
you're not kidding.
like, I'm just so done with it. Like, I mean, why every single year? And I actually there was a great comment that someone I don't even know who said it on Twitter. I just saw it this morning and it made me laugh. But like, he was like, it's kind of crazy that people are complaining about Detroit on Thanksgiving when I have to watch them every single Sunday. And I'm like, you know what? Touche, touche, sir, because you have to put up with this product every single week, every single year. It's just tiring. Like I said it yesterday, and this was a perfect comparison because it's right in my wheelhouse, John. It's like the only reason people put up with Detroit, the Lions on Thanksgiving, is because it's tradition. It's tradition, and,
Mhm.
and you've been forced to accept it. Sort of like John. You know what I'm going to say here, right?
Mhm. I
Sort
know
of
where you're
like
going.
turkey. That's right. They're essentially the same exact things. Um, let's get rid of it. I mean, let's find. I know you look like what is the Bears and the Lions? An old rivalry. It's the original and blah blah blah. I don't care. There's so many better rivalries now. There's so many better matchups like within the moment. I think like the tradition is nice, the history is nice. Like Packers Bears. Oh, that's so cool. But I don't need to see Aaron Rodgers versus Andy Dalton or
Well, I
Nick
do.
Foles. Well, yeah, you do. I mean, because
I do.
let's not forget that his only NFC Championship game came against what was his name? Detroit.
Jay Cutler was
Yeah,
the starting quarterback.
but he
Jay
didn't
Cutler was the starter.
start.
He got hurt. Right.
Or
And
didn't
then
finish. Yeah, right. Caleb Haney.
came in Caleb Haney. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Only you and Skip Bayless know that.
Hey, I got a Caleb Haney poster hanging on my wall right now. I was the only one. I actually had to get a
You
special
were
name
rooting for the
because
Bears in the
yeah,
NFC Championship.
no, Aaron Rodgers was not insufferable to me at that point. No, look,
Soon thereafter, he did become
soon, very,
insufferable.
very
Okay,
soon,
it
very
didn't take
soon.
much. Once he won that Super Bowl and started comparing himself to Michael Jordan,
Yeah.
yeah, that became insufferable. And how everybody look, he's my favorite player, but
Oh, of course.
everyone's coming to Green Bay to win championships with him. Like what? NFC North championships? Because that's about
No,
all
the
we've been winning for
bowling
the
league
last.
championships at
Oh
the
man,
the Sheboygan pin cow. I don't know. Making something
that's
up
big
top.
night out in
Yeah.
Green Bay. That's big night out in Green Bay is the bowling tournament.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I remember you're probably too young to remember, but like around 90, 91, the Patriots were god awful, right? They were like 1-15 or 2-14, and it was just
That was my
Rod
first
Russ.
exposure to
Right, yeah,
the sport of football. Let's put it that way.
exactly. Was watching Rod Russ on the sideline. So I just remember every week because back then there was no ticket or whatever. You just got what they put on TV for you. I'm like, please don't sell out the games because if you sell out the games, then the blackouts lifted and you watch the Patriots at 1 o'clock. Obviously, all the road games are televised, but the home games would, not be sold out; they'd be blacked out. But if they sold out, we'd get stuck with the Patriots every single week. In fact, another friend of mine said he thought the Patriots only played 8 games a year when he was a kid. He's about your age. He's like, I only saw them play 8 games a year because the home games never sold out, so we never saw them. And we would be happy that they weren't sold out because that meant we'd get to see, 49ers, Rams, or Pittsburgh against Houston, like really good, good football. But now, obviously, I don't even think, I think every game's on TV in the home market gets pretty sold out. But yeah, you know what I would do, Ian, on Thanksgiving is I would have a division take over the day. Like, right, so you'd have the AFC East one year. So you'd have Patriots at Jets, uh, Bills at Miami or whatever, and have it as an AFC East day. And then the next year have the AFC North. So you just kind of rotate the
I'd
teams.
say
It's something different.
it's different, but honestly, I think that would marginalize a large portion of the NFL fan base. So
True. That's true.
so I look at certain matchups and say, obviously Buffalo at New Orleans for more than one reason is of a lot of interest to me. Obviously, being a
Mhm.
Patriot fan, you want to see Buffalo lose. But the silver lining being rooting for Tom Brady as well, it's nice to see New Orleans lose as well. So again, there's interest there, but when it comes to Chicago, Detroit, I couldn't care less about the NFC North. You know what I mean? So if
And they're in the Packers division, and they're so bad they're not even in contention. The only team with a prayer of winning that division besides Green Bay is Minnesota.
yeah,
And so Chicago, Detroit was of no significance. Even a Packers fan. I kind of rooted for the Raiders against Dallas because Dallas is in the running, or they were in the running for a top seed in the NFC.
it's
And
kind of
as
fun to see
season
Dallas
goes
lose
by,
too.
well, I'm not a fan of either franchise, although the uniform matchup is gorgeous. I mean, the Raiders in their black and silver and the Cowboys uniforms. I mean, that was a gorgeous
For
matchup
sure.
of uniforms. I mean, just superb. And there's always a lot of sex appeal to the Cowboys. It just is. I mean, I like Jerry Jones. I think he's, a character to say the least. And look, that's still the biggest brand in the NFL. But yeah, it was just the mind-numbing thing about that game was that it was just, like you said, a 36-33 overtime game that was so poorly played. It was like, watching a car crash. Like, it's not aesthetically beautiful. Like, that wasn't exactly Patriots Seahawks in the Super Bowl, which I think is one of the best games I've ever seen. Right? I mean, everything.
Yeah. I mean,
great teams, a lot on the line, heroes, goats, all sorts of things. That was like one of the greatest games I think we've seen over the last, two dozen years.
Oh yeah, from the play on the football field to just the narratives, storylines,
Mhm.
everything like that. And again, you didn't get 28 flags thrown. So
Oh my lord!
and again, that's part of the reason why it just felt like it was just okay. Let's get through this now. Okay, I'm ready to I'm ready to move on. And finally, and by the time Buffalo New Orleans came on at 8:20, I was just so just out of it. I didn't even finish watching the game.
Me
To be
too.
honest with you,
Yeah, I didn't either.
I got to the point where I'm like, okay, the Saints obviously just aren't that good right now. I mean,
No.
look, they played above their means a few instances throughout the year. I think they're look, the irony of this, and I don't even have the energy to get into it right now, to be honest with you. But Jameis Winston had that team at 5-2. Okay,
Yep.
5-2. So of course, I'm going to use this to my advantage and use this as a talking point for some of the arguments I have. All I've heard, or I've heard for a while, is when it comes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is all you needed was a quarterback to not throw 30 interceptions. Well, yes, throwing 30 interceptions is not going to be a recipe for success. But the point is, Jameis Winston was a pretty good quarterback. Now, he has his flaws, but if you look around the rest of the league, I mean, which quarterback doesn't, aside from the pedestal quarterbacks, the 3 or 4 guys that are the
Ooh, I
elite
like
of the
that.
elite,
I like that.
you
The
know?
pedestal quarterback.
Yeah, you like that?
Put that on a T-shirt, trademark. You're gonna make a lot of money. I like, and there's only 2 on that pedestal. By the way,
Yeah,
so we agree on that.
I was being nice. I was being nice. But
Just two.
there's 2. Obviously Caleb Haney, and of
Caleb
course,
Haney, yep.
of course, Tom Brady. No, look, so to me, I think that the whole idea that people obviously use, it's evolved to. I, s- I saw someone say something along the lines of like, well, the Brady and Manning situations were different. They weren't. They both picked which team they wanted to go to. The only difference was Peyton Manning went to a team that was a playoff team that just won a playoff game with Tim Tebow. And so to me, when people talk about the Bucks, it's like, yeah, look, they have talent. There's like that's the worst part about the argument is like people sit there and blindly say they're talented. Well, of course they're talented. Every team in the NFL has talent. John. Like the discrepancy, the difference in talent from the best team to the worst team is not as much as people think. Like people
It's
think
not
it's like
college,
this.
right? It's
Yeah,
not
exactly,
Alabama against
exactly. Like
whoever.
people think it's just this astronomical difference in talent. You can point out the worst team, even Detroit. There's talent on that team. There's a lot of really good talent on that team. They're just poorly coached, and for whatever reason, Detroit just can't win. So, to chalk up the Bucks' success not to Tom Brady necessarily, but to more. So, it was because of the talent. Well, no, they had a lot of talent the previous few years. In fact, actually, John, I went back. See, I told you I didn't want to get into this. now getting into it, but I went back and I looked and I'm like, well, okay, the Chris Godwins, the OJ Howards, the Mike Evans, a handful of guys like that, throwing Deshaun Jackson and stuff like that. They've been around since like 2017. You know what they've been? 5-11, 5-11, 7-9. Tom
Yep.
Brady shows up, 11-5 Super Bowl champion. So that's my rant for the day. I don't want to get too much into it.
I constantly picked them to win that division. Every year I would pick Tampa to win that division because I'd look, it seemed like they always had good drafts, right? I mean, I'm like, this team's going to put it together this year. Like every year I'd pick them in the NFC to be a surprise team and the Chargers in the AFC. Like every freaking single year because it seemed like they always nailed it at the draft. They signed some nice free agents and they had a decent talent pool. I mean, yeah, Manning did go to a playoff team that was an 8-8 playoff team and he was able to elevate them as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, I'm not taking away from them.
And look at Brady. I mean, what Brady's done is just ridiculous. I mean, I just him going there the very first year in the middle of a pandemic with no practice time really leading into the season. I mean, they didn't even play a preseason game and going to the Super Bowl and winning it, winning three games on the road to get there. I mean, it's like I don't know where anyone
this conversation started. This topic not really started, but kind of got energy the last couple of days because I just remembered, and it's your boy Shannon Sharp that said it's not like Brady went to a downtrodden team, and I'm sitting here scratching my head, and I'm like, they had the worst winning percentage in sports.
In sports,
not
just
in the
NFL, in sports.
In sports, they had not won a playoff game since 2002. They had only won. So
you were like in high school when they won a playoff game. The last playoff game they won.
We talked about how long ago 2002 was when it comes to Brady losing 3 games. That was the last time the Bucs had won a playoff game. They only had 6 wins their entire franchise since 1976. So I'm sitting here scratching my head, laughing like, if there's a definition of downtrodden, it's this team who had been over 500 once in the last. It was so funny. So that kind of gave me a chuckle. But it's expected.
It would kind of be like LeBron going to the Timberwolves, and turning them around and winning a championship. Or I mean, dare I say Cleveland, where he did win a championship with every time he's not there, they're pretty bad. But yeah, exactly. It's just no. I mean, anybody that's pushing back on that, and only my support of my man Shannon is he does have to sit across from Skip Bayless every day, so. He's either going to agree with him and it's going to be boring, or at least he tries to put up some sort of fight against your older Uncle Skip.
But my Uncle Skip, yeah, like I said, I wish that were true. Trust me, I wish that were true. But at a certain point, you got to value your dignity versus just being a character, and that's where I differ, and that's why I don't really have too much. Because there is
it's a good job. I'd take it.
There is something I gotta know though. Like this is something that drives me nuts. I gotta know what his bug is about because there's something that he just doesn't like about Brady. Like I mean, you know what I mean? Like I know there's a certain.
He had him on his podcast though. Shannon has a podcast and Brady was on there. And they had a really
but also Shannon will not give up an opportunity to promote himself. Let's be honest here. He would see that and be like, hey, look, at the end of the day, but it's like sometimes you hear him talking. It's like, okay, I understand. Like, oh yeah, it's it's building up. It's kind of you're doing this for the show for the camera, but then it's like sometimes he just gets really like I don't know. It drives me nuts. Like I'm sitting here thinking like, man, I gotta know what it is.
Again, 2.5 hours a day across the desk from Skip may get under a lot of people's nerves. So
that's true.
Because Skip's a really tough guy to debate because then he just discounts whatever you say, which that's frustrating. Like he just says, well, we're not talking about this. Skip's a good debater. He's a very smart guy. And by the way, I do encourage people to read things he's written. He's a phenomenal writer. I mean, now he's turned into a cartoon character. But again, $6.5 million a year, I'd do it. Your rich uncle Skip.
Yeah. Like I said, John, the more you say it, the more I wish it were true.
He's got no kids either.
Yeah,
so I would go there.
Maybe I should try to convince him. Let's maybe maybe I'll find some maybe some 6 degrees of separation and connect us somehow.
Get a piece of his hair, there may be some connection.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, okay. Now we're borderline on a little bit of
kidnapping the man.
Now if it was Tom Brady, maybe that's a little bit different. go that far. But no, there's two.
Like a king of comedy with Robert De Niro and Jerry Lewis.
Exactly. There's two people that I need to know what their problem is with Brady, their personal issue. One is Shannon, obviously. The other is Chris Sims. I don't know which one I want to know more, but both of them have something. And I think at least with Chris Sims, we can trace it back to his one less than stellar season coaching with the Patriots, and perhaps feeling a little bit inadequate to the people in that room. So maybe that's the case, but yeah, we'll see.
The only thing I can think of with Shannon, I know Shannon's a huge Belichick guy, so oftentimes on national TV, you pick one or the other, and you just fight to the death on that. It's Belichick over Brady. In our case, we both think it's Brady over Belichick, but we think Belichick had a very huge role in that.
Well, I've said it before. The reason I believe that is because I just think players are more important ultimately than coaches, because players are the ones on the field. And you know who would agree with me? Bill Belichick.
Exactly. Yeah, any coach would realize that.
I don't know about it. I don't know about any coach. Mike McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy. Yeah. Mike McCarthy's been kind of the luckiest guy in coaching though, because he talks about how he coached Joe Montana. I think he was like an offensive analyst when Montana was in Kansas City back in '94. Like I don't even know if Joe Montana knows who Mike McCarthy is, but Mike McCarthy will say, "I got to coach Joe Montana, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and now Dak Prescott." Pretty lucky, right?
Yeah, I mean, look,
you've had some good quarterbacks there.
I think I'm not as harsh on him as you, although I do, I think he's kind of middle of the pack type of coach. I don't think he's the worst coach in the league. I mean, we've seen other coaches in this league that are far worse than him. But I think he's like a fringe. And this kind of speaks to the coach. This kind of speaks to the coaching in this league, to be honest, which I think is a little bit down overall. And the crazy thing is, it's like what are we? They're dismissing 8 coaches a year. It seems like so. Coaching overall is just not good in this league. So I think he's outside the fringe elite, which again sounds like it's overinflating who Mike McCarthy is. But then you think about it, and you're like, all right. Well, who's in that elite? Well, you got Belichick, you got Andy Reid, put Mike Tomlin up there. I'm missing.
I like John Harbaugh.
I would put him up there again. I'm a little. Whenever I hear Harbaugh, whether it's Jim or John, I get a little indigestion. So I
like both of them because they're both like half Italian. So I got to stick with my boys.
That's true. That's fair. That's fair.
I got to stick with my boys. I like Harbaugh. Pete Carroll, I think we both agree at the beginning was really good because he had that connection to college, and as every year goes by, it seems like he's more out of touch of what the hell the NFL is. Payton's a good coach, Sean Payton. He's one of my least favorite coaches. I think he's a major a-hole, but again doesn't have the players. What are they now? 5 and 6. They're not going to make the playoffs. So it's Belichick, and then the debate is who's the second best coach in the NFL. There's probably about 6 or 7 guys.
It kind of really depends on who's in the hunt then, because it's like for years it was John Harbaugh, then it was Mike Tomlin, now it's probably Andy Reid, and
I'd say Andy Reid,
and look, I mean, I like Andy Reid. I mean, I think he's a really good offensive coach. He still has some of the issues that he had in Philadelphia with clock management sometimes very puzzling, but that's my point though. It's like it amazes me each and every day that people complain about Bill Belichick, because you sit back and say you can probably count on one hand or maybe two the puzzling decisions he's made on the field over the last 20 years. Whereas you can do that game by game for most of these teams. And then even some of the elite teams, you're sitting there scratching your head. So, I mean, what do we name? Like 5 coaches, maybe? So the rest are, like I said, I mean, fringe elite, for Mike McCarthy. Because I put him not too far behind. Like, look, I don't think he's much worse than I mean, I do think John Harbaugh is a better coach, but I don't think the difference is that much.
No,
because
actually, you look at the records. I think McCarthy, Harbaugh, and Sean Payton pretty much came in around the same time. I think McCarthy was.
They're all kind of the same. You know what it is, and they've
all won a Super Bowl. They've all
and they're kind of a little bit too arrogant for their own good. And I think this is where Sean McVay is kind of heading. Because think about that fake punt yesterday. Like, why? Why are you doing that? You know what I mean,
Right.
Sean Payton. And think about some of the random things John Harbaugh does because
Oh,
sometimes he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. I mean,
yeah.
oh no,
And
I'm John Harbaugh. I'm
it
first
probably
family of
comes
football. You know.
it probably comes with the territory. Like Mike McCarthy did another puzzling thing yesterday. They kicked the extra point, and
Yeah.
then there's a flag, so they move the ball from the 2 to the 1. Then he decides to go for 2. He takes the penalty, a 15-yard penalty on the extra point, rather than
Yeah.
letting it be forced on the kickoff. Now you're kicking off from the 50, where at that point you could even try an onside kick. If it doesn't work, they take over at the 35, no big deal. Or you just pooch
Mhm.
kick it down to the 2 and hem him inside the 10. So now you can play field position. Like, what was that all about? Like, I was like, well, that's like 2 weeks in a row he's done something stupid like that.
Yeah, and look, I mean, these are guys that you would consider on the better half of the coaching spectrum, for sure. Because then you look at guys like Joe Judge, and like I said, I already mentioned Matt Nagy, and like some of these middle of
Dan
the pack
Campbell,
coaches,
yeah,
Dan Campbell. Like, I mean, I think Matt Rule's a pretty good coach, but I'm not going
I
to
think
put
so
him in
too. Yeah,
the elite. My feelings on Sean McVay. I think that he's the equivalent of like the hot new thing in at, at
right.
the quarterback position. Like, I think he gets far too much, or he got praised far too quickly, far too much. And I think again, I think he's going to be a guy that kind of ultimately ends up being. Look, I mean, maybe it's not meant to be a certainly not insulting to Sean Payton, but kind of that same mindset of like there's going to be a situation where like he's going to call some random trick play because he's Sean McVay. You know what I mean? He's
Right,
Sean
exactly.
McVay.
Yeah,
I'm going to go for it. I know it says
yeah,
this. I got my guy holding me back, so I'm not on the football field. I'm going to go for it. I'm
yeah.
going
No,
to do
you're
it.
right.
Well, and that's what it's going to be. And it's going to be okay. You're going to win some. You're going to lose some. You know who doesn't do that? Bill Belichick. He
Well,
doesn't
I
get
mean, he did
too
go with his own 28, which I supported, by
I
the way.
still think that I still that
I
spot
totally
was
supported
terrible.
that.
I thought that was
Yeah, it was,
that was
but even going for it, I was all in favor of it. Go
no, me
for it.
too,
I had
me too,
no
me
problem with
too,
that.
because he realized the defense was not good enough to stop Peyton Manning. And
No,
this is why I laugh at people now. As much at the end of the day, I do like Aaron Rodgers. There's no quarterback outside of Tom Brady that I've ever seen just absolutely take over a game and
yeah,
control
no,
the
no.
game
You're right.
and put fear in other teams than Peyton
Yeah,
Manning, including the Patriots. That was the only guy that I would ever see them go up against and sit there the night before and not sleep because I'm like, oh my god, it's Peyton Manning. Like, what's gonna
yeah.
happen? He could, yeah,
Yeah, especially the second half of his career. He actually, I think, won more than he lost against the Patriots. And early in his career it was okay. Belichick is in his head and mastered him. And I think Peyton Manning's so smart, like Brady, beat you
mhm,
pre-snap. That he kind of figured it out. I was always a Peyton Manning fan. I mean, I'm a football fan. I'm
yeah.
never going to look at a guy who's great and say, well, because he's playing against my team, I can't like him. And I think you're the same way. You look at Peyton Manning, and go, that's one of the 5 greatest quarterbacks ever.
I
And
think he's one of the
with
three
that,
greatest.
I do
I
too.
put, I put,
Where I rank him. I
yeah,
mean, I mean, Super Bowl era, because again, Johnny Unitas, who I think could have played in any era, but I'll leave him out of it just for now. But I go Brady is in his own class, Montana's kind of in his own class, and then I would put Manning third. Yeah, so I go Manning third, and then I
yeah.
got Elway fourth, and then my guy I think is fifth because I could take him over Brett Favre, Dan Marino, uh, all the other guys that are going to be in that class. So that's just me. Maybe I overrate him a little bit. The Packers coach Matt LaFleur, his record is incredible. It's 13-3, 13-3, 8-3. So what's that? 34-9 in,
Yeah.
in his third year. That's pretty good. And again, he's coaching a guy that's probably not easy to coach, right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers, I don't think is the easiest guy to coach. So I got to give him credit for that. That he's kind of got him bought in, and they're winning games and all that stuff. Some of his game management's a little, scary, hairy, whatever the case may be. But he's got out of that Sean McVay tree where it just looks like an Abercrombie and Fitch catalog with some of it, doesn't it? I mean, like the NFC West looks like Pete Carroll and his three punk sons, right? Like
The oldest
doing
coach
it
in the league.
the oldest coach in the league. But here's like they should take a picture together. It's like here's Pete Carroll, who looks 10 years younger, and his 3 really good-looking sons, right? Like
I
Sean
got a lot of snap out of context content from the show. There's a lot of sound bites I could pull that could really give
Thank
me
you.
years
Well,
and years of material.
Sean McVay.
Not
Sean
that there's
McVay's a
anything
good
wrong
looking
with that.
Not that there's anything wrong. Who's better looking than Cliff Kingsbury? I mean, the guy looks model.
Well,
and then what's his name? Shanahan's a good looking dude. It's like the Abercrombie and Fitch division.
sorry,
Sponsor.
give me Bill Belichick with the moth-eaten sweatshirt every single day of the week.
Oh yeah, Tim Conway. Doesn't he look like Tim Conway, the comedian? He does. He really. I've always said that.
Anyway, so we got 10 minutes left, so we might as well do our picks since we've, got off the beaten path quite a bit here. But we've kind of stayed on topic. But yeah, we do want to get our picks in because it is Friday. Nonetheless, I know it's Thanksgiving was yesterday, and it kind of feels like things are a little bit different. But we have a decent actually set of matchups, much better than I think last week was.
Yes.
And it starts in Cincinnati with Pittsburgh visiting the Bengals. What's a kind of pretty intriguing matchup in that division. I think you would include both them and obviously the Ravens, and maybe even the Browns. I mean, actually, all 4 of
Yeah.
these teams are really in the mix for this division still, and I don't see a clear cut favorite. So I do like Cincinnati in this one. I think Pittsburgh. I don't know what the status of guys like T.J. Watt are. I think they might be a little too banged up on defense, and I think Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are going to do what they generally do each game, and that's score. And I think they're going to do it a couple times. So give me the Bengals at home.
It seems like every big Bengals game at home ends in a dud. They lost to the Packers in overtime. They got blown up by Cleveland. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh on this. I would assume they'll be healthier than they were last week against the Chargers. And Cincinnati won at Pittsburgh early in the year. Sometimes in these division games, it's payback time, and the road team wins again. I'll go with Pittsburgh at this one.
I also believe they have a 3-game winning streak against the against the Steelers. So maybe it's the Bengals' time of the year. But
you secretly like Joe Burrow.
I do like Joe.
He's
Burrow,
one of the young guys you really like. I mean, I think he's got all those tangibles that we like.
Well, and that's
like a team guy.
Yeah, and I had last year. I'd actually prior to the season, I picked him to do basically what Justin Herbert did, but unfortunately, he got injured and wasn't able to do that.
Herbert's a little. Herbert's ceiling is higher.
Yeah, I think so after watching them. But again, sometimes when Joe Burrow's, he missed a lot of his first season, so I think his progression, his growth is set back a little bit. But
he's good. I like him a lot. Like the player.
Oh, for sure. Next, we have the Buccaneers at the Colts, and what's shaping up to be it's going to be a tough matchup for the Buccaneers. I've kind of gone back and forth on this, thinking, maybe they've certainly not been playing their best football, and Indy is kind of been that it team, but Tampa looks like they're getting Vita Vea back. Antonio Brown is questionable still. I wouldn't count on him coming back just because he has missed so many weeks. So I would never count on him until I actually see him on the field, and then we'll be all set. But at the end of the day, I just keep coming back to Tom Brady's absolutely owned Indianapolis. I mean, we were talking about him and Peyton Manning over the last, towards the end of his time in the Colts and everything like that. That's the last time this matchup between him and this team was competitive. And Indy's had some good teams in the mix there, some Andrew Luck-led teams. This is just one of those teams that Tom just has his way with. It's the same way with Pittsburgh. The Colts are another one of those teams. I think it's the same way. I think Tom goes out there, has another pretty stellar, statistical game, and I think it's going to be high scoring. I think Indianapolis is going to be able to get some points, but I think the Buccaneers will this one.
I'm going to go with the Colts. They're playing really good football right now, but again, it's tough to pick the Colts, even though Carson Wentz is having a really good year. He really is. I mean, he's played well. Other than the fourth quarter and overtime against Tennessee, where he threw a pick in each session, he's played really well. They've kind of honed him in a little bit. And Brady in the dome, it's tough to go against. I mean, in a dome, he's nearly perfect. I mean, the only thing is Tampa hasn't played that well on the road this year. They've been better at home, which is the case with most teams. But I'll go with the Colts here. That's going to be a really fun game to watch. You have your split screen going right with the Patriots
Oh yeah, I
playing
got like 4 screens
Tennessee.
going.
You got it. You're like Alfred the Butler there,
Yeah,
and that,
yeah,
you
that's
got like
right.
all sorts of things going on.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
I keep it under wrap. I got I got things under control there. I don't miss a
you got
snap.
you're the master control of the NFL. I'm the old guy that just sits there and watches the game.
Little
You know?
box TV and an antenna.
Yeah, it's black and white. See?
Yeah, there you go. Listen to the
Although
other game on the radio.
I must say, I was so far ahead of everybody with the big screen TVs. My first big screen TV was in 1986. I was only like 23 years old. It was a
What was I?
You were like what? Were you even born? You probably weren't even born.
It depends on what time in 1986
it
you
was
got it.
January of '86.
Oh yeah, no, I was being I was close to being conceived. Yeah.
Well, you know what? It may have been conceived when the Patriots got to the Super Bowl, because they got to the Super Bowl
Maybe.
against the Bears. And so, real quick story, leading up to January of 1986, so the Patriots are playing the Dolphins in the AFC Championship game. So
actually, yeah,
yeah,
the math is adding up.
Go backwards, yeah. You were conceived with the Patriots got blown out by the Knicks, playing while you're a ardent Patriots fan.
Yeah,
and I'm not fooling about this. Tom Brady may have been conceived when the Patriots lost a controversial playoff game to the Raiders in 1976. It was December of '76. December. This is the worst loss in my sports memory. Well, I mean, the Giants losing Game 6 of the World Series in 2002 when they were like 6 outs away from winning the World Series was pretty bad, especially financially. But Brady may have been. So Brady's August
3rd
of '77. August 3rd. I knew you'd know exactly the date. August 3rd.
Hey, it's a national holiday in my household.
It should be. I worked with the producer at the Herald thinks that the league should retire number 12. And you know what? What the hell? Why not? Retired 12 and 32, the two greatest players in football history. I got no problem with that.
I didn't know you were such an Edgerrin James fan.
I know Edgerrin James, yeah. Franco Harris.
Yeah, I know.
So what I would do though, so the Patriots lost on December 18th, 1976. Right? So 9 months later was August of '77. So that may explain a lot too.
You've really hit on a lot of topics here, John.
When you were conceived, when Tom Brady was conceived. Well, so basically the Patriots are playing the Dolphins in the AFC Championship game against Dan Marino, your favorite quarterback. And I wanted to rent a TV. Yeah, back then you could rent the TV for like $75. Well, I went to Leachmere Sales, which doesn't even exist anymore. Went there to rent the TV. Next thing I know, I bought a TV. At the time, it was a 40-inch NEC, the big box thing that you needed 3 people to move around. A 40-inch TV now, people put their bathrooms. I mean, they're not big. But when I got that TV, we looked like the apes in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like we were all just staring at it. Like, look at how big this thing is, And then had everybody over. The Pats won the AFC Championship game, got mauled by the Bears in the Super Bowl, and I was at the forefront of the big screen TVs, I must say.
Well, I always think of, and I actually had one of those really, really big TVs as well, like the ones that basically take up, square footage in your apartment, not
piece
like
of furniture.
It's like you have to. It's not like a piece of now. It's like you just slap it up on the wall and it's like it's good. But like, I think of that Seinfeld episode where they get the Drake the TV and it's like I want to watch every Super Bowl, every big fight. And you're actually looking at it. And you're like, wow, that picture quality is terrible. Like, look at that.
Terrible.
It's terrible. It's just bigger.
Silver or whatever.
All right, so back to our picks. Back to the picks. And it's going to be rapid fire because we still have all but 2 games to do, and we have about 3 minutes to do it. So next, Carolina at Miami. Miami obviously coming off 3 games, winning 3 games in a row. I got Carolina in this one. I just think they're a great team. So give me the
I'll just be different. I'll take Miami.
always be different, John. Always be different.
I know. I like to be different.
Next, we have the Patriots hosting the Titans and what's going to be a pretty big battle for the top seed. Look, it's hard for me to pick against the Patriots at home right now. Not because they're at home, but just because they're the Patriots and the way they're playing. I think they win this game against a short-handed Titans team.
I do too. And real quickly, the one guy we didn't mention is potentially the second best coach in football, Mike Vrabel.
Yeah. I
He's in that discussion.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Patriots handily, though, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is going to be a I hate using the word. I think it's going to be a statement game, and not that they need
It
to
will
make a
be.
statement to us, but I think a statement to the rest of the league and the media. So, Philadelphia at the New York Football Giants. Giants stink. Philly's not too bad. Give me the Eagles.
Makes no sense when I'm picking the Giants. They were horrible Monday night. Philadelphia's on a roll right now. Again, these division games, new offensive coordinator, maybe it shakes them up a little bit. I'll take the Giants at home outright in terms of the Vegas line. They're an underdog, but I think they'll pull the upset over Philadelphia.
Next, we got the Falcons going to Jacksonville. This game could have probably been played in London. I don't really care too much about it, but anyways, I got the Falcons in this one. They haven't been playing great, but hey, very nice to get to play the Jacksonville Jaguars. So.
Could have played this game in Milan. I mean, I like who's doing this game on. This is you're the last broadcast team when you get selected to do the Atlanta Falcons at Jacksonville. Like this is like where they bring in the guy who does 3 games a year, play by play. I'll take Atlanta. I mean, they're my God, they're bad, but I'll take.
I was going to say might have got the second worst broadcast crew because this next game could have probably be played on the moon. The Jets at the Texans. Yeah, exactly.
He's right.
I think Zach Wilson's going to start for the Jets, but I'm still going to go with Houston because at the very least, at least Tyrod Taylor's playing some pretty good football right now. So give me the Houston Texans at home.
Yeah, I'll take Houston. This is a weird week, isn't it? Ian? You either have really great matchups, Patriots, Titans, Colts, Buccaneers, or like god awful matchups, which is actually good because now we'll see some good games. We don't have to pay attention to the dregs.
Next, Denver, AFC West divisional matchup, hosting the Chargers. This should be a pretty good one. I like the Chargers though. I thought they started to bounce back pretty well, and I think they're playing some pretty good football right now. So give me the Chargers on the road.
In the high elevation, Justin Herbert's going to throw a ball from his own end zone to the other end zone. That's just my, off the wall prediction. He may be the best candidate to do that, or Josh Allen, except Josh Allen may injure someone in the stands as it goes wayward. I'll take the Chargers. I mean, they're one of my favorite teams. Love the uniforms, love the quarterback. Let's go with the Chargers.
Next, we have one of those really, really intriguing matchups, big matchups in the NFC. We got the Packers, your Packers, hosting the Los Angeles Rams. This is kind of a tough game to pick. I think we would both agree that Green Bay is the more consistent team across the board, and that kind of I think bodes better for playoff success. But I think this is a regular season Rams win, and it's one of those false hope type wins for the Rams where they're going to go out, they're going to go look flashy. It's going to be the Sean McVay show, and Matt Stafford's probably going to throw a few touchdowns, and they're going to be like, oh, they beat the Packers, but at the end of the day, I'm still thinking, well, the Packers, because they're not going to get too high or too low off this, and I think that's what the Rams do. And I think the Rams, to their credit, are talented enough to compete with any team in the league. I do think they win this one. It's a close game, but I do think they win.
If Rodgers has time, he'll shred that defense because they play too high shell zone. I mean, he just destroys that. Same thing with Brady. I mean, those two guys, if that's what you're going to do against them, they're just going to pick you apart. The only problem is they're decimated along the offensive line, so he's going to have to, try to really roll protection in the right direction.
Yeah.
You got Aaron Donald that scares the crap out of you, but hopefully Green Bay, they usually do a good job on the offensive line developing players and coming up with a good game plan. I'm sure they're not going to leave one of their offensive linemen on an island with Aaron Donald. That's not a really right thing to do. So I think the Packers are going to find a way to win. I do. I think that they're a better team than the Rams. And again, Matt Stafford, it's going to be 32 degrees. I'm going to go with the Packers.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, trust me, either way, I mean, this is a 50-50 one for me. I think regardless, though, at the end of the day, this isn't going to change my mind about the Packers. I still think they're a better team than the Rams. I think the Rams are just more boom or bust. I mean, that's what it is. It's boom or it's bust. And I think that's a very dangerous way to play, and it doesn't really equal a lot of success, certainly in the playoffs. Regular season, sure, you're going to have a lot of great looking records, but that's about it. Next, this is actually a very intriguing matchup. Two teams coming off some pretty nice wins and kind of getting themselves back in this NFC playoff picture. That's the Vikings at San Francisco. And
Yeah.
and look, if the Packers lose and the Vikings win, all of a sudden that division becomes a whole hell of a lot more
Yep.
interesting because Minnesota has that tiebreaker um, over the Packers. I do think San Francisco wins this one, and I think I'm picking them because they're on the road. They're at home. Because I think both of these teams are kind of playing in the same way, not the same physical way, but they're
Mhm.
both, started slow and have kind of really started to pick up steam here these last few weeks. And they're both coming off some pretty big wins. So I do think San Francisco wins this one, but I think it's going to be one of the best games of the afternoon.
Yeah, really good matchup. There's like about four teams in the league that are around 500 that are playing really good football right now. San Francisco, Minnesota, Philadelphia, and Indianapolis. They're all kind of
Yeah.
teams on the rise. I think San Francisco wins. They're at home. I think that's going to be a big advantage for them. And then Minnesota coming off a huge emotional win over Green Bay. I don't know if they'll be able to get up for it traveling halfway across the country. I'll take the 49ers.
All right. Last but not least, Sunday Night Football. We have the Ravens hosting the Browns. Um, like I said, the AFC North is still fairly wide open, so I'm not going to write off either of these two teams. Although Cleveland, I think, is trending in the wrong direction.
Mhm.
Baltimore, I just don't know what they are. I agree they go as Lamar Jackson goes, but depending on who you talk about, Lamar Jackson is the most like highest greatest commodity in sports history, or he is what he is. He's a pretty good quarterback that has limitations. So, well, if you don't have the talent around to elevate those, I don't know. It's tough for me to place where this Baltimore team is because they're 7-3. They just won a game without Lamar Jackson, but they're at home against the Cleveland team, who I think is greatly flawed in dealing with a quarterback that's not only injured, but you know, maybe not as good or whatever. So I like Baltimore in this one, although I would like to see.
I think he's going to pull off the mild upset at Baltimore. Baker's a mess right now. He's got all sorts of injuries. Doesn't Baker Mayfield feel like the quarterback in a movie? Like you have this football movie, and you have like the kind of the over the top
Yeah,
quarterback, the eye black and the headband, and he's headbutting the offensive lineman, and he's almost like a cartoon character. I do like Cleveland in this game. I think they're healthy in Baltimore. Baltimore's got a ton of injuries, and Nick Chubb, when he plays, Cleveland is that much better, and he's ready to play this Sunday. So I'll take Cleveland.
yeah, it does. We actually managed to get
Yeah.
through it with some pretty decent time. It's only 10:05. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for joining us for your post Thanksgiving Day sports fix, because I know this is the only show that you watch. But we will be back. We'll be back next week to obviously break down what we saw this upcoming week and look at a pretty lackluster Monday Night Football matchup between the Seahawks and the football team, which I'm sure everyone's excited for. But no, enjoy your weekend, folks. Enjoy the rest of the holiday with family, friends, whatever. And we will be back on Monday. Have a great week.